All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming. Hopefully we'll get a few more people coming this evening. Well, I'm pretty excited about the event this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ted Davis. I have the privilege of being the chairman of the Governmental Affairs Committee of the Leavenworth Lansing Chamber of Commerce. We're sponsoring this event this evening. I'd like to express my appreciation to, first of all, Eric Price from Rogue Creative, our videographer, makes this all possible, and then to Kelly Butler and Jeanette Labey, who are on my committee and help me do all the legwork for that. So thank you for your help. So tonight we want to talk about cybersecurity, and to do that we recruited two of the finest here in the Leavenworth Lansing area. We've got Joe Wilson from SorWil
Technology Solutions.
And Nathan Maxwell from Communication Concepts, Inc., right? Mm-hmm. Both of them are experts. I was talking to them, and they do similar things, but they don't see each other necessarily as adversaries. So it's always neat when they do that. So there are two experts. I'll let them finish the introductions. They can start the presentations. If you'll hold your questions, we'll have a Q&A as soon as they kind of walk through the material they prepared for this evening. So, gentlemen, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. So just a little bit about me. I've been in the industry for about 20 years now. Started my first IT consulting company in 2001. I sold that company, moved to New Jersey, and I've worked as a CTO for a company and worked with another Google partner with several other companies. Come back to Leavenworth recently and started SorWil Technology Solutions. Just enjoy helping people, enjoy getting to know people, and helping them improve their business through technology. We try to work with them as partners, not necessarily as customers. We try to get to know what they're doing so that we can help them on their level. Nathan, you want to?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Nathan Maxwell, and I lead Communication Concepts. That's kind of a mouthful, so we also go by CCI or CCI team at this point. CCI team has been around since the late 90s. We have, much like Joe and his team, we work with small businesses. We try to walk in and provide a complete turnkey IT solution. Small businesses need the exact same thing large companies need, and they don't have, they're not Boeing, right? There's not the resources and this massive IT and cyber department to get things done. And so CCI has been around. We work a lot in the Leavenworth area, but also throughout the entire metro. Got clients scattered all over, and we are also very focused on customer service and customer success.
So the first section that we're going to cover is the basics of cybersecurity. Why does cybersecurity matter? And so here I've got a couple of things. I think we all realize that the world is full of cyber threats. Everybody is getting the emails that they need to click here to change their password, that their boss is asking them to send money, and people are being taken advantage of on a pretty regular basis. And so what we need to do really as a business, even as individuals, is what are we looking for so that we can help protect ourselves? Because I think at the end of the day, especially in the business world, I think most of our employees are really trying to do the best job that they can. And in doing that, they inadvertently do something that puts themselves at risk. What are some of the common threats? We have phishing. I think everybody understands what phishing is. Somebody is sending out an email with some information. They may have some of your information in the process, and they're really trying to get you to engage with them in order to get more information about you. In the process, they want to try to access some of your client data, some of your personal data, and really trying to take control of your information that way. Of course, there's all malware exploits. You click on something, you click on that UPS email, and it's not really a UPS package. I promise you, nobody is sending you a free iPad if you click on this link. That is the one that gets a lot of people. Well, I thought I was getting a free tool. And then, there's other social engineering ways of trying to get your information. We work with a couple of companies who've had somebody actually call in and try to get information from the company from somebody over the phone. And so there are just a number of ways that companies are trying, or people out there are trying to exploit that. Just some tips here. You want to use unique passwords. Password 123 is not a secure password. Welcome 123 is not a secure password. Taping it under your keyboard is not the best place to put your password. So from that standpoint, you want to use something that is, at a minimum 8 characters long. I think so cybersecurity world now is going to words and sentences, random words and sentences, different things. Everybody complains that, well, I can't remember all my passwords, and so I gotta have a spreadsheet with them or a notebook with them. Those are not the places that we want to put those items. We want to use tools that secure those items, and there are a number of products out there that can help you do that. Two-factor, and Nathan's really going to go into two-factor here in a little bit, so I'm not going to touch on that a lot. I'll let him do that. You want to avoid public Wi-Fi. When possible, you want to use your own virtual private network, which would be an app on your phone or on your computer that would then secure you from access. And really, it's people out there trying to gain access to your information. And always think about what you're clicking on. That's really the big key. Look who the sender is. A lot of people will say, I'm getting this email from the USPS at gmail.com. Well, USPS is not going to send it from gmail.com. Make sure that you're updating your computer. And you'll see here there's a number of things. But computer updates are really important and key. Antivirus updates. Make sure that you're watching what you're clicking on, obviously, and that you're securing your own tools and your own computer. And you want to stay proactive. You want to make sure that you're doing everything in advance, that you're looking at everything you're doing, and that you are staying informed. Cybersecurity is really about staying informed, trying to read up on it, or engaging somebody like us to help you with your business. A lot of people don't realize they have a problem, and I think Nathan and I were talking about this the other day, until it's too late. Cybersecurity prevention is kind of like insurance. You don't need it until you need it. Nathan, you want to comment on any of that?
Yeah, so what Joe shared was spot on. The industry, like our industry, will say you never reuse a password, you always make them long, complicated, and all that, and so you've got to have a tool. Like anytime somebody tells me, well, I have a formula that I have memorized and I can manage my passwords through that, it's like, no, right? You cannot physically do that. So you need to be using a tool like a Bitwarden or a 1Password or a Google Password Manager or something like that to store all of these passwords. These passwords need to be generated by that tool, right? Because if you're still using Monkey123 and then you're putting it in your password vault, that's not a win. So lean into the tools because it's physically not possible to meet these standards with just your mental brain power. It just doesn't work. Okay. So let's talk MFA. This is something that's a lot of you are probably going to know. A lot of you are probably going to be familiar with a lot of these concepts. So I feel like my job is to both educate and inform you on what it is, but then also I kind of feel like I'm here to sell it to you, right? To convince you of the need for that. We got a call from a COO at a client a couple of years ago, and he's like, "Man, we're having all these email issues. There's just some weird stuff going on." And so we kind of got in and started digging, and I'm like, "Oh my word!" And I started running the numbers, and it's like, your account has sent 80,000 emails in the last 90 minutes. How is that even possible? He's like, "Well, I didn't send those emails," and it was this bogus spoofed email. It was phishing, and I think it was like something from Microsoft with a password reset link in it or something like that. Looked pretty legit, and it was 100% bogus, and 80,000 of these emails went out. You know why their emails broke? Because Microsoft looked at it and went, "Oh, you know what? We'd rather you not send those emails through our system," and they shut the account down. And it took days and days and days to get it unlocked. Now, that was the same person that we had a conversation with about the importance of multi-factor. And his comment was, "Oh, that sounds really good. We'll get back to you on that." And he all of a sudden had time to implement multi-factor as soon as his email wasn't working. Because I guarantee you Microsoft wasn't going to open that account back up without that. So multi-factor is that safety net for you above and beyond your password. So we're going to talk what it is, why we need it, and how it works. So let's first of all define it. So MFA is multi-factor authentication. I'm going to start with that word authentication. What is authentication? Authentication is proving who you are to the computer. Now, when I walked in the room tonight, Joe and Catherine were here, and we all authenticated each other. I'm like, oh, there's Joe, and there's Catherine, right? And I knew them based on any number of things, their voice, their body language, their face. Like, you recognize things. Have you ever recognized somebody from like way far away when you can't really make out anything, but like their gait and their body language on how they run or walk? It's like, oh, well, that's so-and-so, right? So that's authentication, is recognizing and knowing who somebody is. And our computers do the same thing. So authentication, there's 3 ways that computers are going to authenticate us. There's 3 things. They're going to authenticate it by what we have, right? Something that we have in our possession. What we know, which would be something that we have memorized, or something we are, which is going to be a physical characteristic. And that's going to be a fingerprint scan, a retinal scan, iris scan, or something like that. We used to call it second or dual factor authentication. Now we use the word multi for whatever reason. But multi means we're going to add something to that. So everybody uses a password, generally speaking, to log into stuff. Passwords, the industry agrees, are the worst form of security out there. But ironically, they're also the cheapest. Hence, they're used everywhere. So we need something to go above and beyond what that password is. My pen tester friends, the white hat hackers, right? Those that are on the good side of the law, that are under paid engagements to break into organizations, they say we don't need to use some really exotic CPU chip timing hack to get into your environment if we can just grab your password off the dark web and log into your VPN. There's just no point in putting that much work into it when we're just right there and in as it is. So we need a backstop against weak passwords and against all of our passwords that are just all over the dark web and readily available for downloading and for browsing. So we're going to combine something we know, which is going to be our password, and we're going to combine it with something that we have, generally speaking, which for most of us is going to be our phone. Now, some of you may have those little tokens that the bank issues, right? Rotates numbers change every 30 seconds on it. Same concept, right? That's something that you have, and that is something that helps authenticate. But anymore, for most of us, it's going to be our phone. You lose your phone? That's a problem. Swap your phone out? That's a problem. And yet, it is absolutely necessary because most of our password hygiene is really not up to speed. Sometimes when looking at a topic, it's useful to look at some analogies to it. And so I like to equate multi-factor to seatbelts. If I'm trying to sell you a car and I go, hey, check out this seatbelt, it's going to give you 10 more miles per gallon when you wear it. And it makes your ride so much more comfortable. Like you will never want to go on a road trip again without wearing your seatbelt. You're going to take that car for a drive, come back in 20 minutes, you're going to go, you lied. I don't get any better gas mileage. And this thing's really uncomfortable, and it's kind of miserable to wear. We wear seatbelts hoping we never have to use them. Right? Nobody gets in, puts the seatbelt on, and says, well, I can't wait for this to kick in today. It's not what you want, and yet we wear seatbelts. We make sure our kids wear seatbelts, right? We listen. I have younger kids. We listen for that click. One of my kids works at Jet Produce. Leaving Jet, it's not quite a suicide turn, but like that's a fast road with poor visibility, right? I'm like, hey guys, everybody buckled? Like, I want to hear that click. No, I'm struggling. Hang on. All right, I'm going to sit there. I'm going to wait for them because it's that important. So seatbelts are a good analogy when it comes to multi-factor because multi-factor is a hassle. You're going to be sitting on your sofa at home, on your iPad or on your laptop, and you're going to try to log into something, and it's going to ding your phone that's on the other side of the room or that's way back in your bedroom or something like that. Multi-factor is not designed to make your life any more convenient. It is designed because you need a safety net behind your password. So what do you multi-factor? I want you to look at this list. I'm not going to ask for show of hands or anything like that, but in your head, look at that list and see what you think is the most important account type on there to have MFA enabled for. A lot of us are probably going to look at like the banking or something like that, but it's actually, from a practicality standpoint, it's your email. Almost every single app that you log into, if you can't get logged in, what do? Reset your password. Where does that link go? To your email. Okay? So that email is a pathway into 95+% of every online account that you use. Now, some banks are doing better with this, and they will not do a password reset via email, but some still do. So you want everything on there. You see those Facebook and Instagram posts like, oh, I locked out. I can only get in on my phone, and somebody grabbed my account and stuff. Yeah, you read those and you go, hey, guess who doesn't have multi-factor on their social accounts? So you want everything possible that you can multi-factored. Really, there's two options. You know how you're checking out on some website? If you're never going to go back, just check out as a guest. Like, don't even create an account. Like, what's the point of having an account? HuggyBearCandles.com, order your candle and be done. You don't need to be able to go back and log in there. You're going to be buying these things all the time. So just check out as a guest. That's fine. But for all the accounts that you care about, you're going to go in and you're going to multi-factor it. You're going to link that into your phone, and you're going to tell the system, I want to have the secondary prompt every time I log in. Now, does that get to be a hassle? Sure. Right? A lot of these systems are going to have processes where you can check a box that says, don't ask me again for 60 days. Great, right? Not a problem at all. We're going to balance risk with hassle here, and that's a very reasonable thing to do. But everything you can. And there's no set way to turn it on for all of these. The way that you do it in Facebook is different than TikTok. The way that you do it in Southwest Airlines is different than on UMB Bank or whatever. And so some are going to do it automatically and some aren't. But you really do need that because you think you don't care about some of these accounts, and then you start seeing how they're integrated, and you actually really do. So put the work in and put multi-factor in everything. It's not going to make your life any easier. You're doing it for the same reason that you have seatbelts in your car and smoke detectors in your home. You're doing it as a protection mechanism should something bad happen. Keep in mind that when we use our phones, there's two ways to use the phones. We can have an app on the phone that will link in to these different systems, and that's great. We're not going to get off in the weeds too much, but you need to realize that if it is multi-factor on your phone, using an app, that if you replace your phone or you reset it and reload it, you might be locked out of some things. Because even though that app is a part of your backup, for most of these, the restore process doesn't pull down what's needed in order to relink this. So you need to keep in mind, Apple did that to me one time. I was they were working on my phone, and they're like, oh, look, you've got these like dead pixels over here, and they're like, we'll swap your phone for you. I'm like, wow, great. I spent 2 months trying to get back into all of the different accounts that were linked on that phone. Because I walked out, I'm like, this is really good. And then I went to log into AWS, and guess what? You can't reset multi-factor in AWS without a phone call. And it's like, yeah, it was chaos. So keep in mind, this is not without some hassle. So none of this negates the need, like Joe was talking about earlier, for good password hygiene. That is still necessary. But when you get the email from PayPal that says, hey, we've had a data breach and all, you read that email and you're like, it's no big deal. Because A, I've got everything multi-factored, and B, that password doesn't exist anywhere else. So I don't care if that password's on the dark web. So nothing with MFA negates the need for strong password hygiene and practices. MFA just needs to go in to complement it.
Just kind of to put a pin in that, a lot of the times the customers will reach out to us saying, hey, I just got this email saying that somebody needed to reset my MFA and I didn't do that. That's an indicator that somebody's trying to get into your data. And so those are the things that we look for. So then we go back to visit with those customers and say, is their account secure? Is there anything else that they can do? Were they breached? With a lot of our customers, we look in and we look at the back end and make sure that their logins are secured and everything. But it's a great point. And a lot of times people will not use it simply because it's just difficult. And we've worked with a number of CEOs who are like, it impedes my ability to do anything. And then the first person they blame when things go awry is the IT guy because I got hacked. We can only recommend what you should do. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility to do what's going to protect you. We can make recommendations, much like doctors. You should probably do this regimen. You should probably not eat McDonald's every day. You should probably not do this. At the end of the day, you've got to take some responsibility, and the business has to take some responsibility for making sure that they are doing it. The weakest link in a business is always the end user. And once again, I firmly believe that there is nobody in the company. I've probably run into in 20 years, 2 people that were actually trying to be malicious. Most people are trying to do the best job they can, and in some fashion fail, and two-factor could have saved them. Email safety. Email is really where we start to see a lot of these things, a lot of the issues that start to come up. We need to think about what we're clicking on. We need to verify. So if you get that email from someone and you're not sure of who it is, or somebody sent you something, you should call to make sure you're expecting something before you click on that link or you open that attachment. That's where we see a lot of things happen. Microsoft is not going to secure your account. They're just not going to do it. They're not getting paid to do it. They're not sending you an email that you should click on this link to do this. Those are the things that we have to be wary of. We want to avoid places that can cause problems. We work with a lot of home users in computer repair, and mom and dad are like, well, I don't know what happened. Well, Johnny clicked on something he should have. Johnny went somewhere he shouldn't have. We have to avoid those places if we're going to make sure that we're safe. And we want to make sure that we use multiple accounts. So the thing that I always tell people is it's good to have like 5 email addresses that you use. Use one for business, and all you do is use it for business. Use one for when you're ordering from the candle store, if you're going to make an account, so that those emails just go to that account. And if you decide, I don't want to use that account anymore, it's not impacting your work email. Maybe use one email just for your private use for your family emails. And everybody's like, well, that's a lot of trouble. I don't want to do that. But those are the ways that we keep ourselves safe. What we see a lot of people use is one single email account for everything. 9 times out of 10, it's their work email. And so when it gets compromised, now everything is compromised. Recognizing phishing emails. So we're looking for those emails that don't look right. So we should always look at who the sender is. Does that email address look right? It may say that it's coming from Nathan Maxwell, but if it's not coming from a CCI email, and it's coming from a Gmail account, I guarantee Nathan's probably not emailing business people with his personal Gmail account or Hotmail account or whatever it is.
Gmail.
Those are the things we need to be looking for, though. How is that email coming? Was I expecting it? Who is sending it? The big thing is, and they've gotten much better with AI, and we could probably go into we were just talking about this earlier, a whole forum just on AI. But with AI tools, spammers are becoming even better because it's doing the grammar checks for them. It used to be you could spot a spam email because, Prince, Nadi from, Africa, he couldn't put a good sentence together because it was all misspelled, and you're like, oh, this can't be right. But now they're coming in, and they're even more difficult to see. And sometimes they're difficult for us to see, I think. I've got to call sometimes and verify or do a whois lookup on an email address to see, is that valid? Because, they're getting very, very good at faking it. It can be one letter off sometimes and look right. It could be an S at the end. So make sure that you know who the sender is, what that email address is, and that you're expecting it and that you're anticipating it. Safe email practices, obviously use multiple accounts, enable two-factor, avoid unexpected attachments, or reporting suspicious emails. For our company, what I tell a lot of our customers is, if you're not sure, call us. I would rather spend 5 or 10 minutes with you looking at that email rather than you clicking on it and spending the hours it's going to take cleaning up a problem. So it doesn't matter if we go through 4 or 5, ruses where it really was a legitimate email to find the one bad one that you might have clicked on. But we tell a lot of our customers that, just make sure that you're sure what you're clicking on. If you're not sure, reach out to us. We want to spend the time with you to look at it to ensure that there isn't a problem. Avoid a lot of these scams. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Nobody is sending you an iPad. I had one customer that was just sure they were getting that free iPad. And so I had another customer sure that Prince Nadi was going to send them $1 million if they sent them. The focus of a lot of these is the older generation, because they don't have somebody they can turn to or don't feel like they have somebody they can turn to. And so they think it's a legitimate email from the IRS, and so they have to send money. Or I had one customer who said, well, I had to send my $500 so that I would get access to this account. Those are all things that we should be aware of. I can't tell you the number of elderly people have come to us saying, hey, I've been hacked. I'm out $4,000 or $5,000. Can you help me? And so then it's a lot of time cleaning up their computer, pointing them in the right direction so that they can try to recover some or all of their money. Many times, if it's a credit card, that can be secured. Sometimes they're just out. There are a number of security tools. Spam filters are a great thing. Microsoft, Google both come in with some spam filters of their own. You can look at third-party tools to attach, but also make sure what you're attaching, that it's actually a legitimate tool, because there are a number of tools out there that are not legitimate that will hack you in the process. So you want to make sure you know what you're buying and that you feel confident in it. Antivirus is super important. Make sure that you have some type of antivirus protection that is protecting your computer. Encryption is super important. Not everybody uses it. There's a cost to it in most cases. Google and Microsoft have a version of security built into their platform called TLS security, Transport Layer Security. So they will provide a certain amount of encryption unless they send to a tool that doesn't have encryption, and then it automatically decrypts. So there's some things in there that can be tweaked to ensure that doesn't happen. And then watch out for phishing. You want to talk about emails or comment on email safety?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. So yeah, piggybacking off of what Joe was saying, you're supposed to look at a link before you click on it, right? You're supposed to hover over it or press and hold or something, and you get this nice little 1-inch square preview of this link. And our industry expects you to parse that in a few seconds and figure out if it's legit, right? It's alphanumeric. There's all these different punctuation things in there. And again, nobody has to answer this, but when you're looking at that, I want you to ask yourself, what's the most important thing in there? What are you really looking at? And the correct answer to that, if you're going to parse this correctly, is you're looking for the final decimal point, the final period in there, and what's to the left and right of it. Nothing else matters. And that's a really hard thing to do when it's a 1-inch by 1-inch square wrapped URL that's alphanumeric with question marks and periods and slashes and dashes and all this other stuff in there. So that's what you're being asked to look at, and that's really hard. It's really hard to do. And so you need to be cautious. You need to be careful what you're clicking on. You need to put the thought into that. But what I will tell people is that I'm much more concerned about what happens after you click, because you're going to click sometimes. Like, it's going to happen. I'm much more concerned about what happens after the click. If you're asked to log in, that's a huge red flag. Like, don't do that. Don't provide any credentials. Don't log into anything ever as a result of clicking on something. It's just not a good thing. DocuSign does not require you to log into Office 365 in order to DocuSign something, and I see that probably weekly, right? As far as that scam. So when you click something, right? When you've decided you're going to click it, be very aware of what happens next. That's really that kind of key safety thing there.
Next thing we're going to talk about is active phishing training. This is really kind of new to the industry, and in the fact that what we want to do is create environments where we're actively training employees to look for these things. This impacts a number of things, and Nathan's going to go into cyber insurance and all that, right? So as we get into compliance, this is one of those things that can help keep your cyber insurance security down, the cost for your insurance down. Are you doing active phishing programs? And so what is phishing training? It's actively sending employees or being a part of a group, if you're a home user, where you're asking somebody to send you these emails, And what we're looking for is when you click on it, you're getting instant feedback on whether you should or should not have clicked on it. The tool that we use more for more of our customers than most is Know Before. It's a security platform that does this for you. And so you are constantly phishing customers. We run the program for a lot of the customers. We'll do it on a quarterly basis. I have one customer who wants it done on a weekly basis. And so it creates almost a paranoia in the company of, well, I don't want to be the guy called out or the girl called out for clicking on that email, because we're keeping track. And I tell people all the time, we're not here to punish you. We're not here to make fun of you. The idea is that you're getting instant feedback on these emails that you're getting when you click these links or these pictures, and the level goes from easy to hard, and the hard ones are AI run, and they're hard to parse out sometimes. And we've had, the IT guy for the company click on those links. He's like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. But they're that good. But the goal is you're getting that immediate feedback, and you're generating this, I don't want to say paranoia, but everybody in the company is now on the lookout because they know you're actively doing this. With that comes trainings, videos to watch. What I like about Know Before is it provides these 5-minute office-style videos. And this really isn't an ad for Know Before, but what I liked about them is that they're interesting, because this topic can be super boring, right? If you didn't have Nathan up here talking about this, you'd be like, oh my God, I'm so bored. But they're actually funny. Sometimes they're a little bit over the top, but there's a point to them. Your social media accounts, that's the biggest thing. They tell so much about you. We post everything from what we eat to where we go, to our dog's name, to our mother's maiden name. If somebody loses access to their social media account, most of that information is going to give access to the rest of your life. And what we have to learn is, what should I be posting, what should I not be posting? That could probably be its own seminar on its own. But with the phishing training, it's teaching you all of these things, and it's pointing you down the road of, this is how I should be behaving when I'm using the tools. The other part of Know Before that we really like is it has active people calling companies now and trying to do that phishing of, hey, this is John with UPS. I need you to press these 2 buttons on the phone. I'm going to send you an email. I need you to click on this link so that we get your information. They will go to those links. I have one company out of New York. They are like, please do not do that, because my people will do that. I'm like, but that's the point. We want them to experience that, because once they get to that point, somebody will call them back and say, hey, by the way, you should not have done this, and this is why. And so once again, it's all about that immediate feedback of, I should have or should not have done this. Very realistic simulations. I worked with one company who had a cybersecurity company they worked with specifically, who had somebody mailed into the server room in a box to do active phishing. And that's how in-depth some of these companies will go to. And this person actually got in because nobody thought to check the box. Nobody was expecting it. They thought it was server equipment, and somebody actually got into the server room. So that's how elaborate some of these companies will go with some of these tools. But once again, immediate feedback, regulations. Here we talk about Know Before. It's one of them. Cofence, FishMe is a good one. Barracuda Fish Line. What's good about Barracuda is it has a spam filtering tool to it, as well as Proofpoint. Proofpoint's probably the least expensive on that list, I think, because you get the spam filter and the training. But once again, really good tools. Some final takeaways here. Phishing attacks are preventable with awareness. Active training builds strong defense. So really, it's about making people aware. Implementing it beforehand is always good, because oftentimes it's too late if you don't. And then stay vigilant, stay proactive. Those are the keys to really being successful in the cybersecurity world.
Yeah, phishing is still the #1 path into most businesses at this point. So, and when you read about breaches or whatever that's happened, it generally is going to go back to a phishing email. So,
what is the most elaborate phishing email that you've seen that may have almost duped you?
I had one that almost did personally dupe me. Yeah, I had somebody email and say, hey, we want to buy 20 computers from you, and it was from a California energy co-op or something like that. It's weird, right? Like that's that red flag, but it was spot on, even to the point their domain name was one character off. And when I typed that domain name in, it did a quick DNS forward over to the correct website.
I had a
was well
construction
done.
company just email me the other day sending me a very similar email that they were purchasing from the government, and the government, they wanted 100 computers and 5 servers. It's like 25 grand.
Yep.
Very similar.
Yep. And here we sit talking, and there's probably some Saudi prince somewhere with a whole bunch of money they're trying to get out of the country and come live in the U.S., and none of us are willing to help them. Okay, let's talk compliance now. So a lot of what we've kind of been through so far today has been applicable for home users as well as business users. This is really going to be very focused from the business standpoint and talking about something that's really been developing in the industry for the past 5+ years or whatever, and that is compliance. I want to frame this segment here in the risk category. Compliance is really a conversation in lowering risk. Risk is the buzzword for pretty much any business stakeholder. What do I do that raises my risk? What do I do that lowers my risk? And so this conversation is really about risk management, but particularly using compliance as the buzzwords on that. So what is compliance? This is my definition. This isn't ChatGPT or anything, but it's the act of conforming and doing something that someone else tells you to do. Right? That's not something that a lot of us are really fond of. We don't like people saying, hey, you have to do this and this and this. And yet that's what compliance is. We don't have to like it, but it is a huge thing. I got a panicked call from a client a number of months ago, and they had their dream contract that they were bidding, and they were just reading the fine print in the contract as they were getting ready to submit. And there was a paragraph in there about, actually there was like a page, but the paragraph in particular on cybersecurity and cybersecurity policies. Okay, so he was reading down through it. And there was a clause in there that said the submittal of this contract will align with the New York cybersecurity law. And he was like, I'm in Kansas City. What do I care about New York? Like, no. But by him submitting that paperwork against that master services agreement, that MSA, he was agreeing that he was in compliance with this New York cybersecurity law. So the compliance comes from everywhere. And it's about risk. So CCI is like, SorWil, okay, we're going to come into a company, we're going to come into a small business, and we're going to provide an outsourced IT solution. That means we get access to everything in that organization. We have access to every file on every computer. We have access to every email in every single mailbox everywhere in the organization. We have access to everything you have in your Outlook, right? People that are still using the notes feature of Outlook for their password storage, we get access to all of that. Like, we get everything. So we're coming into an organization with the goal of lowering their risk, and we also are increasing their risk because of what we do and how we do it for them. I have yet to have a client say, hey, can you tell me about your security policies and your security practices? Can you tell us how you handle this and this and this? And that's what compliance is. Compliance is the process of mitigating and lowering risk. There's 4 ways that we as society deal with risk. We can accept it, we can mitigate or lower it, we can avoid it, or we can, I knew I was going to run out, I was going to get 3 out of 4. Actually, I put them on the bottom of my notes because I knew it was going to happen on that. Transfer, avoid, accept, or mitigate are the 4 things that we can do with risk. So it really comes down to mitigating it to where it can be accepted. And that's what compliance is. You're going to get compliance requirements from all kinds of different sources. Your industry is going to have compliance requirements. That's going to be PCI. PCI is not a government program. PCI is your major credit card issuers like Visa, MasterCard, and Amex that sat down and said, we're going to make some rules that people that handle credit card transactions have to follow. So that's an industry thing. The government, FedRAMP, CMMC, HIPAA, these are industry-specific ones, but they're handed out by the government. Cyber insurance, just constantly. Your cyber, comes up for renewal, and you get a sheet of paper, or two now, right? Two-page PDFs, and you're going through and you're saying, okay, have I done this and this and this and this and this and this and this for this? Because cyber got tired of paying out. 5-10 years ago, we'd have a cyber conversation with a potential client, and they'd go, no, we're just going to get a cyber insurance rider on our policy. It'll cost us $500 a year, and we're good. And cyber insurance figured out within the past 5 years that was really not a good plan. And so your cyber insurance is going to require you to do different things in order to maintain compliance. But then also now clients and customers. We have a law firm right now that just was risk managed, that was just given a compliance checklist from one of their clients that they have to prove and that they have to attest to. So that's all big picture stuff. What is this compliance? Compliance is a set of rules that you're going to say, I'm adhering to. The cyber insurance is going to say, hey, do you have next-gen antivirus running on all of your endpoints? Do you have a firewall of some reasonable degree of quality? In other words, one that wasn't provided to you with your Spectrum or Google account. Do you have backups that you have tested? They're just going to ask you some really basic questions on that. You're going to work through and go, yeah, okay, I've done all that. Right? That makes sense. The compliance requirements that business is putting down are generally very reasonable things. And there are some exceptions, right? If you're a little tiny company and you're trying to do some work on post, and all of a sudden you're being hit with this 50-page document, it can get excessive. But in general, compliance is asking you to do what a reasonable person would do. It's the whole due care and due diligence. The conduct that a reasonable person in your position would do. So it's not asking for some crazy things. It is asking you to do what's reasonable and legit. The one thing is you work through whatever these compliance requirements are. It doesn't matter where this came from. It doesn't matter whether it's a client or customer. It doesn't matter whether it's the government, insurance, whatever. But you need to be honest on that paperwork. I had a conversation about PCI compliance at one point, and I'm like, I've been working with you guys for a while. You do credit cards. I'm like, what's going on with PCI here? Like, oh, well, we get a letter or an email and we send it over to like somebody over in AP or AR handles it. And and I'm like, well, they don't know anything about IT. They don't know anything about the systems here. Oh, well, it's just where it goes. And so I walked over and talked to that person, and they go, oh yeah, we get that like every year. And we just go through, we just check yes, right down, all the way down the list. And I'm like, how do you know it's yes for all those? Well, I mean, I think we do the good thing as a company, and we're trying to do the right thing. So like, we're probably a yes on all of that. And it's like, yeah, like that is not the way that works. So be honest on the paperwork. It is important. And for some of these, like it's legal and like major money issues if you're not. Compliance with cybersecurity is a process. Hope is not a plan, but most of these frameworks respect if there is a plan. So even something as even something like HIPAA, right? If you go, I am deficient in this area against this guideline, but here's my plan to fix it, that's valid, right? Because that, if you're assessed against that, then okay, well, when did we make that plan? You said in there that you were going to take 12 to 18 months to get fixed. We're 9 months in. Where are you at on that journey? That is a very, very valid position to be in. So hope is not a valid position, but actually having a plan is. So it's a journey. Start super small and start easy. And you might be sitting here going, well, I don't have any compliance requirements. Nobody's done this to me yet. And that's fine. But depending on, for your organization, ask yourself, what's my dream client? Like, who would I really like to work for? And then ask yourself, what are they going to want to see in my organization in order to do business with them? And if you're going after a large, big whale of a client, they're going to want you to have your act together. So this is a journey that you should go ahead and get ahead of. Go ahead and start that. It's a crawl, walk, run concept. We're going to crawl. We're going to get some of the real easy things knocked out first. General cybersecurity stuff. The next step is we're going to write some policies, right? Like if you don't have a policy or procedure on something, then how do you know if you're doing it right? So we're going to do things right, and then we're going to create some policies to match that. And then we're going to start assessing against policies, right? It just kind of grows and matures over time. You don't have to be there within a month, but it is a journey, and it makes a lot of sense to start that because you don't want to be sitting there looking at that contract and going, oh, do we comply with the New York cyber laws? Well, I don't know if we do or not, but I want to turn this in because the deadline's tomorrow and I have to fill this box out here. And that was a really tense conversation to work through. Okay, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, the thing that I run into a lot with people is, well, there's this logical fallacy. I'm not a big enough fish, so it's never going to happen to my company. I have a small company in Leavenworth, Kansas, and it's just never going to happen to me. That's simply not true. It's not a matter of if, but when. Everybody's going to be at risk for that, and so understanding that you're potentially could be a victim of a hack like that is definitely possible. So when we start talking about compliance, it's making sure you have all your ducks in a row, making sure that you've done everything and check those check boxes. The number of companies providing cyber insurance right now has decreased. I think there's like 5 major companies right now, and so premiums are going up. So as long as you're doing all these things that Nathan's talking about, policies and procedures, security information policy, cybersecurity training, you've got a firewall in place that's been tested, and you're doing backups. Those are the things that are going to keep premiums down for businesses. When you fail to do that, then the premiums go up. And a lot of times as you're filling out these policies, there is that fine print, the small writing that says, if you don't do this, we're not going to pay out. So it's important that you understand what's in the policy and that you're protecting yourself with that. So that's all I'll add to that.
Yeah, it's huge. Don't falsify those reports.
Okay. All right, questions?
You're on, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I have the first one, cybersecurity insurance. Is that with any insurance company, or are there special companies that you get cybersecurity insurance?
So I think most companies will provide you with a rider, or at least point you in the direction of it.
Okay.
The cost will be determined based, like I said, on all those questions. But there are a number of companies out there that will point you to one of the big 5, roughly.
Okay. Other questions? I have one other. How do you report, you said talking about reporting phishing and suspicious email and so forth. To whom do you report it, and does anything ever happen?
Usually you will have reporting functionality built into your email client. So in G Suite or Office 365, there's a report button on it. It generally doesn't do anything. It's like adding somebody to a block list in your email. The email addresses change all the time, and so there's not much value. Occasionally, we'll see an entire company will get the same email, or a large number of people will get it, and then we'll go in and we'll pull that back out of their mailboxes. But reporting it, at least, I mean, I don't know if your experience is different, generally doesn't, it just makes you feel better. It doesn't really do anything.
I've had a number of people say, well, who should I report this to? Because there is definitely something here. I haven't talked, in having been in law enforcement, I haven't talked to a law enforcement agency that has given much credibility to it. So like Nathan said, I think it often falls on deaf ears until you're out money, or until you've lost something or had something stolen. There's just not much that people do. And a lot of it has to do with jurisdiction, right? Where did the crime actually occur? Was it the sending place? Was it the receiving place? I worked when I was with the city of Olathe for a year as a police officer, I worked a cybercrime there where somebody did some ordering on a credit card, and it never went anywhere simply because where did the crime actually occur? Was it where they placed the order? Was it where it was sent from? So we're still in a stage where we're trying to figure some of this stuff out, unfortunately. But if you're ever in doubt, you can always report it to law enforcement, and they can at least take a report.
I have one other question on the multi-factor authentication. So if the website you're going to, or whatever it is, doesn't have it already set up, is there any way you can get something that will superimpose multi-factor over top of it? No.
It has to be set up through the website. You can't add something to. You can't easily add anything to that.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, if your home doesn't have a deadbolt, I can't add a deadbolt for you so I can access your house. So they have to have it built into or baked into their solution.
And then I have one more question on the phishing tools that you listed. Are those something that we as who own the computers, we can download and set up, or is that okay?
Yeah, so there's a number of places you can go online for phishing tools, software. Happy to talk. I think either of us would be happy to talk with anybody afterwards. But these are things you can download online. There are trainings for people who would want to be actively phished or trained on that. A lot of times, I know we've started setting up some home users on our account so that they can go through some of this stuff, and then we can manage that. We have about 3 or 4 people that we do that for now, so we're happy to do that as well.
Good. All right. Questions? Yes, sir.
So, this might be a silly question, but what do you guys see as the future? So you talked about passwords, you talked about MFA. What do you see? Is there anything coming down that you see in the next 5 to 10 years that people, I guess, general people or businesses are going to be using to protect themselves?
You wanna go? Oh.
I'm gonna throw out the 2 letters.
Okay.
It's gonna be AI. I think AI is where the future is headed, and that's what's going to be designed to protect you. And there are going to be tools that will use that to help you secure your network, help you secure yourself, and go down that road. What would you say?
From a practical standpoint, there's a technology that you're starting to see more places called passkeys. And passkeys remove the need for passwords. They actually work under the same mathematical concepts that secure our web traffic right now. When you go to Amazon and it's all TLS, HTTPS encrypted that traffic, passkeys use the same algorithms, the same math concepts to protect your logins. And so passkeys are going to gain traction simply because passwords are so weak and so many of us do such a poor job of using them. So I think we'll see passkeys get more and more adopted.
So I was looking at not to geek out on this, but I was looking at I think it's Clear at the airport.
Yes.
I was using the TSA pre-check.
Yeah.
And now everybody's using it, so now the next thing is the Clear. And they said, I think they said it was facial recognition as well as fingerprint. So that's why I asked that question. I didn't know if at some point in the future, those kind of things would be more, if what your guys' opinions were of those type of things, do you think that would be more commonplace to be used in instead of passwords and even the MFA?
Yeah, I think biometrics is really beginning to be heavily used right now, especially for you can log into your computer with your face, or your thumbprint. A lot of people complain that thumbprints get messy, especially if your hands are too dry. I got a door in the house that uses a thumbprint that doesn't always work right when I get out of the shower. So sometimes it's difficult. But I think we see a lot of that now, and I think what they're looking for is what is beyond that.
Yeah, and our phones add a lot of capability there as well. So I think we'll see a greater reliance and link on of logging into something or doing something and having some sort of interaction with the phone that then is going to pull that biometric, the Face ID or something. So there'll be stuff tightening up there.
I've seen some hotels now that as long as you have your phone in your pocket, they'll open doors and open your room, and you don't even have to take it out now. As long as it's got that chip in it, you can do that. And so I think what you see the industry trying to do is ease of access, so you don't have to do a whole lot, at the same time still being secure. And so I think there's a very gray area there is ready to be exploited as well. I mean, cloning a phone is something that can occur if somebody's really interested in doing it. I think it's down to that. Are they looking to get at you and what you have? Are they looking for somebody specific? That's going to be the difference.
Yes, sir.
Reference to MFA, is it possible, because I use it on quite a few things, is it possible to have especially when you're doing bills or something like that, or one of the accounts where she and I would be, maybe one of us trying to do something where the other one is uptown or something like that. Can you put, at least as far as cell phone usage goes, to do that, 2 different accounts on that to where either can open it, or is it just simply, mostly across the industry, just one?
So never.
Don't worry, I don't use it.
Right.
Usually get a number or whatever.
So never say never. It is designed to not make that easy. Okay. but there are some creative ways to do it. Sometimes there's a code, like a QR code that pops up on a screen. Right? If you both stand in there, you can scan the same code with both phones. The code is static. And so there are ways to make multi-user work with multiple people, but really the best answer is one-to-one and you know, I'll just QuickBooks Online, right? You're just going to create another account, give the same permissions to it, and then let somebody else log in with that. So you're working around and trying to make something happen it's not designed for. There's some creative ways to do it, but it's just best to be like, hey, right, like this is my account, and here's how I add other users to it. Yeah.
One of the things I've seen is like if you use one password, you can go in and as you're creating that login, you can put the 2FA in there, and then whoever logs into one password would then have the credentials to log into the account and could bypass it. Some customers do that, especially if we need to access their stuff. We'll use one password and sometimes have to be able to use that stuff. But like Nathan said, it's ideal when it's one-to-one, but there are times when you can get around that.
Other questions, John?
Yeah, I had a question. So, one thing that's really growing in popularity for AI is the small businesses are training small businesses how to really utilize it, use it for sales by putting it their website in and then another business's website and say, teaching how to get a sales pitch using my website, you know, I don't have their website address and another website address. So, but do you have any concerns where, putting too much of your own information in could be, I don't know, risky, or you would recommend against that yet, as far as AI goes? Because you can put in your own tone, you can put in your own, there's a lot of things you can do to really personalize AI.
So all of that stuff is stored on a server somewhere online. If you're going to use it in that function, there are ways to download it and use it on your own network so that it doesn't upload it. You can teach it. I have one customer who created their own AI chatbot, made sure that it didn't upload any of their data to the web, and stored it locally. So there are ways around that. I think what we're going to start to see is the need to post that you've generated this stuff from AI as well. I think that's going to become more prevalent. There's going to be requirements that if you've used AI, it needs to be posted somehow. We're talking with companies about whether they need to create AI policies, but specifically about storing data, yeah, I think there is some concern there. And I think anytime you upload anything to the web, it's on a server somewhere, it's accessible by somebody.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would assume anything you put up there is public. There are plenty of exceptions to that, like Joe was saying, but if you're just using a regular ChatGPT or Perplexity or something like that, you want to be real careful what you put up in there. If it's like a Microsoft SKU that you've purchased or something, then there's privacy in that, and that's different. But most of what most people are using right now is very public, and you know, if you're dumping in an employee offer letter or something like that, you want to sanitize that before you put it up there. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We talked a lot about computers, obviously, and email. But Joe, you mentioned like using your phone to get into your hotel room or whatever. Are there things that we ought to be doing to protect our mobile devices with regard to radio frequency ID and near-field communications to help protect those as well?
I'll let you take
I'm
that one.
happy for you to go first.
Oh, no, I'll let you take that one.
So there are things, you know, they say the Hacker Cyber Camp, like, so Vegas, Black Hat, and DEF CON, these 2 weeks of these conferences, right? When you go there, you turn Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, like you shut your phone basically off when you walk into this building for these conferences. So there are things that make sense to do, right? Whether it's an RFID blocker or whatever. But for most people, in most situations, your phone is secure, and that's actually, I'll be curious to your thoughts on this, but that's actually something that I'm okay trusting, unless I feel like there is some sort of a raised threat or whatever. But the amount of time, money, and effort that goes into securing your phone, if it's a current phone and it's updated, is immense. Like the ability to break into your phone is a very, very expensive process for somebody to do. So there is some safety in that, but what do you think?
I would agree with most of that. I think what I run into is people who don't even put a PIN code on their phone,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I had a number of CEOs I worked with. They're like, yeah, I'm not putting a PIN code in my phone. The phone itself holds probably more data than your laptop, your wallet, anything. And if it gets lost at the airport and there's no code to it, I mean, that is a huge loss. So I think we need to be concerned initially with how are we protecting the phone? Is it a 4-digit PIN code? Is it a 6-digit PIN code? Is it a PIN code plus facial rec? Is it a PIN code plus, something else? But we need to be securing our phones and making sure that we're protecting that tool first. And then I think, starting to think about secondary things, near field theft for even like credit cards. Everybody's like, you need to have a special wallet now to protect your credit cards. And I haven't gone to that extent yet myself, but I think there is going to be a time when that becomes a concern. But I think where we're at right now, I would agree with Nathan that most of our phones are mostly secure. I would be interested to see, do you think Google or iPhone is more secure?
I think iPhone.
I would agree with that. And nothing against anybody who uses an Android phone, but I think that because Apple is so particular in what they offer in the App Store and that everything is tested, I would agree that your iPhone is probably the more secure tool right now.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still the case, but it used to be that PIN code on your phone was what formed the basis for encrypting the rest of the phone file system. And so, yeah, like you're saying, like if there's no PIN code on there, there's no encryption, it's, wide open. So, be a bad deal.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Can you give a little more clarity on what exactly kind of financial losses a cybersecurity policy would be?
Sure, that's a great question. Typically, what you're looking at is it's bringing in a team that is designed a lot of times specifically for data recovery. While we perform that function, they will bring in a team of people. And I've seen this with a company out of Camden, New Jersey. Connor Strong, who's a health insurance company, was hacked while we were in Jersey, and it wasn't advertised. And I didn't work for them or anything. I just happened to hear about it. But they brought in a team to do data recovery, to do data analysis, to pay for the loss of time that their email was down. I mean, it paid over $5 million in losses, as well as getting equipment sterilized and back up and running. So there is a huge potential cost there. But it's going to do a lot of data analysis, data recovery, investigation, trying to see where the data went, what data was lost, what was hacked. Did I leave anything out?
Yeah, no, that's what they are. That forensics team's going to come in. If you do have a cyber incident, your cyber insurance company is the first place you should call. They are lead on that response and that mitigation effort. Even though you and I would be comfortable doing all that, we're not. I'm not a forensics guy, and so the forensics people, it's like a black art with some of what they're doing in there.
Well, you bring up data recovery. Is it best to store all your data in the cloud?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Doesn't that make recovery easier?
It does if you don't have a local backup. So what I tell a lot of customers, and I'm interested to hear what you think on this, is I would rather you store it in the cloud than lose it at all, as long as it's stored in a secure location and it's protected. If you're using some third-party software that's just storing it in some unsecure cloud, then no, because your data is at risk. If you're using Google Drive or OneDrive, your data is in a pretty good position. And really, we want to get to the point, at least with our customers, that laptop or desktop computer is just a conduit to get to the data. Right. So if that computer crashes, which is really what we're worried about there, we can just load up another computer, we can get to what we need to get to. But you have to have some type of backup if you're not going to go to the cloud.
Cloud's pretty accepted at this point. If you have a ton of data up there and you have a massive crash, the recovery time can be difficult, or can be lengthy, depending on where it is and how quick you can download it. But the cloud's a very acceptable spot to place data at this point. I don't see a lot of data privacy. I don't have concerns about somebody being able to go download my backups without my knowledge because they have an account on the same system or things like that commingled data. So I think unless you have something against cloud storage, from a cost and a convenience standpoint, it makes a lot of sense.
I have two quick questions. Do you have a preference, Edge over Explorer? Are they preference, same thing, different, one more secure than the other?
I think she means Edge or Chrome.
Yeah, Edge or Chrome is I think what you're thinking there.
I don't even know.
Yeah, so it's the same engine underneath. Microsoft abandoned their attempt at creating their own browser engine. So they're both running Chromium under the surface. So then you decide which one you like better. Microsoft is actually going to be a little better with some data privacy things. Chrome isn't free. Google, you are the product. So when you're using Chrome, then you are providing data back to Google to some degree. And so, but the add-ons for Chrome you can't use Chrome plugins on Edge, can you?
No, you can't.
I didn't think so. Okay, so Chrome has a much more diverse plugin app store and plugin store than Edge. So most people are using, at least my experience, most people are using Chrome over Edge. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the industry has really pushed us towards Chrome because I think this started to happen before Edge came out, and a lot of people didn't like Internet Explorer, and so I think there was a big push towards Chrome, which I think is what caused Microsoft to abandon Internet Explorer and go with a similar version. A lot of people don't realize that. I think that Chrome has a long way to go to because it can be super computer intensive, and a lot of computers will slow down because people have like 20 Chrome windows open, and it's very resource intensive. But I still think it's probably the industry standard at this point.
Chrome has so much market share that Google actually donates money to Mozilla, who makes Firefox, just to keep them on life support. So Firefox doesn't go away. So there's like just having another browser in the mix. So that's how established they are in their position.
Okay, and just my last question was, for some reason, and I could be wrong, but I thought I heard something about Google being not as, or Gmail or something not being as good or solid before. Maybe, am I making that up? Anybody heard that?
There is the rumor or the belief that Google Workspace is not as secure as Microsoft Office 365. I think that's going to be, and I've talked to, having worked directly with a Google partner, having had access to Google, everybody short of the CEO. I worked on a project that the developer of Google Drive was on a call. In most cases, if you're just comparing email, they are both equally secure. If you start to go to cloud, Microsoft Azure is more secure. They're military grade secure. Google is just on this process of getting to that with their cloud version. But I think on a basic, if you're comparing apples to apples, Office 365 to Google, they're both secure.
Anything else? Okay, gentlemen, how about giving your contact information one more time so we can get in touch with you?
It's right there.
Good. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We will have this online in a couple days, and thank you all for coming this evening.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Good job.